Hey guys, good morning. It is December 6th, 2019, about 10:15 in the morning. I just posted the NBA cheat sheets today for the premium members. They were free yesterday in the Facebook group for everyone to try and test out. And in our premium chat, I've been talking about some custom projections that I've been working on. I have 3 or 4 different sheets. I go back and back test when I get free time. My wife absolutely hates it because I spend hours at the computer. But anyways, I've got one here that's simple. I haven't released it yet, so a lot of people said, where is it? Where can I find it? I posted a screenshot of it last night. I'm still kind of tweaking it a little bit, but here in the next couple of days, this is a tab I'm going to add to our NBA cheat sheet, and I wanted to show everybody what it looks like, how to read it. That way, when it comes out, you'll have an idea of what to do with it. Now, I've been on PTO for the last 2 weeks. I do have to go back to work next week, unfortunately. So in the chat in the afternoon, it'll be kind of hit and miss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run over this new tab, what it's going to look like, what I'm going to add to it, and then we're going to go back and we're going to look at some players last night from the 4-game slate on December 5th and how we could have narrowed this down for a player pool. So I ran this sheet about 5:45 Central Time, so about 15 minutes before lock. So the screenshot I shared in the group might have been a little bit different. So real quick over here, we've got our player names. This is the current projection that they're at, projection and value. This is my new tweaked projection and value. And again, we're just tweaking it. We're not reinventing the wheel. These are the main 3 columns we're going to focus on. We have Vegas Edge, DVP Edge, and then the Total Edge, which is just adding these 2 together, not rocket science. I tried to set this up on a scale of 0 to 100 to make it a little bit easier to look at. People understand that as a grading scale. You can think of it like A, B, C, D, whatnot. The Total Edge, we're going to look at players here over 100 to start. And then I have projected minutes, and I'm going to add a column next to this. So when you see this, it'll have average of minutes over the last 4 games, so we can see the people that are projected for a big boost due to injury or whatnot. And then again, this is the current projection, salary. These 2 columns just show the last 4 average, so we can see if they're projected about the same as their last 4 or higher. And then we have the last 10 ceiling. So on my cheat sheets, the ceiling game, I pull out of their last 10 because I want something that's recent that they've done not 50 games ago or last year or just one time this whole year. So the last 10 ceiling, it's constant. It keeps moving throughout the year. So it doesn't have one guy who might have scored 90 points the first game and it's going to show 90 all year. So I like it because it's growing and whatnot. And then we have our team, DK position eligibility, ease position. Most of the time, this is where FanDuel has them. This is where they play the majority of their time, and that's what we use for DVP. And then we've got the DVP, the team total, and the odds. Now, I'm going to split this column here into 2, one for game total and then one for team total. Or I'm sorry, one for game total and then one for spread. So sheet's going to look a little different. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to come over here to new value. We're going to sort high to low. Now you can see Ish came out. He was starting. What's-his-face was injured. He was going to get a lot more minutes. The DVP Edge is less than 100, but with as many minutes as he was going to play and as cheap as he is, he's a value. Cameron Johnson, he was listed as a top value all day. He got over 100 on the Total Edge, so his score was 130. Projected at 23 to 25 minutes, so he was one that was used. And then you can see Marcus Morris, just terrible. His Vegas Edge was awful. His DVP Edge was awful. Total Edge was at 0, which you can see DVP to his spot was only 38, which is one of the lowest on the slate. Team total was only 97, and they were 9-point dogs. So he's someone that you could put in your player pool for GPP. GPP, you can put anybody in there because if you get someone low owned that goes off, that's great. But he did not score well. Wagner was another one. He was below 100, but he was another value play that everybody was looking at. And then these 2 guys, the minutes in red, 16-21. I don't pay attention to guys that are playing 15 minutes. And then one of the big questions that came up a lot in our premium chat was Jackson Hayes and Wagner. Which one do we use? The prices are, they're a little bit different. Well, you can see here, if you put them side by side, the DVP, Wagner was getting 38, but Hayes was getting 55, and then team total 114, 120. And then I'd quickly look here at total edge and say, okay, Wagner's an 83.4, Hayes 198.3, which is outstanding. I would go with Hayes. Now, again, this is easy to say looking back, but anyways, this is how you would look at the top value plays to kind of determine who you like, who you don't like. Some guys you want to put in your lineups. Now, the value plays are always going to pop up before lock, so you got to make sure you get them in your player pool. But if you want to narrow your player pool earlier in the day to guys that are going to be on the court, they're going to be in smash spots, this is how I'm recommending we use this sheet. And again, I've only been tweaking this for a couple of days. I'm still tweaking with it going back, but this is kind of what I found, and we're going to go back and look at yesterday kind of what would have happened. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take minutes, and I'm going to sort these. I want over 30, so greater than, equal to, let's go 30 minutes because we want a player pool of people who are going to be on the court, or at least projected to be on the court. And then up here, this total edge, to narrow this down, I want to say greater than or equal to 100. So if they don't hit at least 100 on this, we're not even going to look at them. And then from here, you can sort this by total edge and start going down the list. You can sort by the new value, go down the list. You can sort by the projection, look at the top, go down to the bottom. Either way is fine. You can even go here to the normal projection and sort it by value and go down the list and say, okay, I like this guy, I don't like this guy, and kind of go down the list. So either way, it doesn't really matter. Since we're on this value here, I'm going to go ahead and just leave it there. And then I have this sheet over here, which you can see, and this is just yesterday's results. So we have the player, the ratio, and how many points they scored. And this says 90.132. You divide this by 10, so it's 9x. So Jackson Hayes was 9x value, scored 34.25 DK points. So that's how we're going to read that. So let's just look at a few. Now, of course, I sorted this by players that return the most value, and I went all the way down to about 4.8 to 5x, so we have something to go look at. Now, yesterday was only a 4-game slate, and so you can see Cameron Johnson and Ish Smith, the ones we looked at earlier, they were up here at 10.8x and 9.2x. And then Morris and Plumlee, we didn't have in there. They got some extra run, and they end up doing really well. So if we go down here and we look at this list, so let's see, we're sorting at the projected value. So they had Embiid and Horford. Typically, both of them are not going to go nuts, so you can pick one or the other. I think Embiid ended at right around 5x. Let me see if he's in here. I know he's not up towards the top. And then Horford did not have a good game, but everybody else did. So I don't see them in there. So let's go down here to Lonzo Ball. So Ball was projected at 32 points. We had him about 30, but he was in a smash spot. His total edge here, he was at 100 on the Vegas edge, a 78 on DVP, putting him at a 178, which is really good. And he ended up right here. So he ended up at 7.1x and scored 51.75 points. So he's someone good to have in your player pool. And again, we're not trying to hit on every single one of these guys in NBA. That's virtually impossible. What we want to do is get a player pool that's got a lot of these guys up top that are playing a lot of minutes. So we have Kenrich, we have Pascal, we have Van Vliet, Tobias, Rubio, and then just some of these players here. Let's see, I numbered these off to make it easier. So let me see if this is how I had them set up. So Van Vliet 1. Okay, yeah. So Van Vliet was projected at 37. We project him at 43. He scored 43.5 for 6.5x. So that one was really good. Ben McLemore, I didn't know any of them. I did see him pop up on this sheet, but it was about 10 minutes before lock. And this is a good one to look at here. So he's projected to play 30 minutes. He had a last 10 ceiling of 47, and he averages about 20 points a game at 4,500. Now, they had him projected at 19 points for 4.3x. We had him projected at 28 points at 6.4x. And so he's a good value play. His total edge was a 105, so he just makes the cut. And then he ended up right here scoring 40 points for 8.9x. So he took away from some of the other big stars like Harden and took some of those points away, but he's a great value and a great pivot if you're trying to win a GPP. The next one is Drew Holiday, and the point guards for New Orleans, they were in a great spot. So they had a great Vegas edge and a great total. And let me find, where's Lonzo? Okay, so Lonzo here, you can see they've got pretty much similar numbers. They're both in smash spots here. They're both projected to play quite a bit. We projected them at 40 and 32. I'm sorry. They were originally projected at 40 and 32. We projected them at 46.6 and about 31. And then they ended at, Drew scored 51.75 for 7.1x. And then Lonzo, where are you at? He scored 54 at 10 point, about 2x. So we'll just say 10x. So they were great to have in your player pool. You could have went with either one. Typically, I won't put both of them in the same lineup, but you can set up a filter depending on what optimizer you're using. If it's got a lot of advanced functions to say, I want either Jrue Holiday or Lonzo Ball, but not both in each lineup. So that way you might get 10 lineups with Holiday and 10 lineups with Ball. Then that's not a bad spot. But last night, both of them went off, so that was great for them. Down here, these guys in blue, they would have made the cut in the player pool just by doing minutes and the total edge. And some of those, like Booker, I didn't own any of them, so I'm not trying to say that, hey, I played this guy. I honestly didn't really like him. They had him projected a little over 5x at 39 points, so he's playable. And we had him projected much higher at 46 points for over 6x value. And then he ended up going for 71 points for 9.5x. Now, I didn't own any of them, but if we would have ran this is what my player pool would have looked like. Westbrook, I also probably wouldn't have owned any of him, not with Harden there and Capella playing, because Capella takes so many rebounds. Westbrook has been struggling. So they had him projected at 47. We had him projected a little higher at 53 that put him in the player pool. His total edge was 132, so it's over 100. And then how did he end up? So he scored 56 for 6.4x, which was good. So that's a good pivot off of Harden if you wanted to be a little less chalky. So again, he was projected at 47. We projected him at 53, and he ended up scoring 56. So if you use these projections in an optimizer or you're running lineups in Excel, however you're doing it, using these projections would put him in more lineups than using your standard tout projections. Horford was in there, but again, Horford and B, they're both not going to do well, and I don't think he hit 5x. I think he was below that because I didn't highlight him. Tobias Harris, they had him projected at 37, 39. That's about the same, but the reason he makes the player pool is he's in a smash spot here on this total edge of 173. He ended up scoring 49 for 7.6x, excuse me. Oubre, they had him projected at 31. We had him projected at 36. And on someone that's only 6,000, that's going to jump almost a whole nother X value. So he was at 5.2X. We had him at 6X. And he ended up, where's he at? Oubre, right there. So he ended up scoring 48.75 at 7.9X. So again, you can start to see we're not hitting all these guys, but we're getting a good player pool. So even if you didn't have the value guys and you just ran this player pool, you're going to end up getting a few lineups that are just going to absolutely smash. Now, if you go in there when Ish Smith came out and he was projected at like 7 or 8x 20 minutes before lock, you lock him in, you run 20 lineups at 50% exposure with this player pool, and you're going to get some good results. So what I'm tracking is to see going forward, is this a quick way for us to generate a player pool of people that are in smash spots and then just watch for values to lock in or plug in at that point? So that's what we're going to find out going forward. And again, we're going to go down here to Lonzo. Again, we looked at him. He smashed 10x. We looked at him when we looked at Drew. And then some people that we could look at that maybe pivot off of that didn't do well that I wanted to bring up was Ingram and Jokic. So Ingram, I believe he got hurt. So, because I don't think he was playing in the fourth quarter of that game, but I didn't pay attention. So he was projected at 45. We projected him at 46. That's typically kind of where he sits, about that 5 to 5.5x. And the Vegas edge, his total was good, but the DVP edge was alarming. So it was scored a 37.8, so very low. But the Vegas total was so high, it put him in the cusp of the 137.8. So if you wanted to look at that and say, hey, the DVP edge is so low on Ingram, I want to narrow my pool, I'm going to cross this guy out. So if one of these numbers sits really low, like you could see Capella here, you could have X'd him out. I don't believe he hit 5X. Yeah, so that would have been one. Macklemore was just playing so more minutes. He's fine in there. Booker was another one that was fairly low on that, but he ended up just absolutely smashing, and they scored a ton of points in that game. And then we go down here. Oubre, he was low. He made the 119. He was cheap enough to take a shot on. But then these more expensive guys, I thought this was kind of interesting. So Harden, given if it's a blowout or whatnot, Harden's not going to put up 70 to 80 points every game. He had a very low DVP score. I don't really care when it comes to a stud because they're going to score Harden's unguardable, so it's irrelevant. But if you wanted to say, hey, 4-game slate, he's going to be the highest one owned because of this right here, this DVP edge, and his price tag, I'm going to pivot off and maybe go to Westbrook, or maybe I'm going to do Westbrook and Macklemore, wherever he was up here. Then you can get a little contrarian. And then down here, like Lonzo scored well, did well. Lowry, he was right on that 5X cusp. His DVP was low. Harden's DVP was low. Ingram had a real low DVP. And then PJ Tucker just exploded right here. So he had a score of 129.6. Decent on the Vegas edge. We'll say it's passing. And then the DVP edge is 58.4, so that's decent. So if we scroll over here and we look a little deeper, they're giving up 47 points to his position, and then a team total of 114, and then odds are 230.5, which is a monster total at a +2. So a really close spread for a good game. And he's projected to play 35 minutes. Now, I would want to see what he's averaged the last 4 games that he has played, so that's why I'm going to add this column. But again, this would be another guy that would jump out in a smash spot, and he did well. Let me find him in here. PJ Tucker. So he put up 40 points for 8X. So that's a solid guy to have in your player pool. So you could have came through here last night and said, okay, I'm going to do salary, low to high, and then said, okay, these guys under $5,000, I'm going to pick a couple of them, and these are going to be my value guys. Well, you can see here there's 2 from Houston, so you could have went Macklemore and Tucker and said, okay, I'm going to use these 2 guys and then fill studs from everywhere else and just stay off Westbrook and Harden. That would have been one contrarian way to go. And last night it would have been decent for you. I don't know how it would have worked out in the end. And then Kenrich and OG, how did none of you do? 4.8X. Okay, so, and he didn't even kill you, so he ended up 4.8X, so he was kind of right there. Oh, wrong guy. There he is. 4.8X, so he didn't kill your lineup. He got you right there at that 5X, and on a 4-game slate, you don't need to hit that 7, 8X to win a GPP usually. You can cash it a much lower rate. And Kenrich Williams, where is he at? I don't know what he did. I didn't pay attention to that game last night. So I know he's not up in the top half, so he must have been below. So out of these value guys that made the player pool, we would have had 2 of them absolutely smash. Lonzo smashed. And so if we put the player pool together, it would have been decent last night. We would have definitely got some lineups across. But anyways, I just wanted to kind of show you guys what this is, kind of how you come up with it. So last night, this would have gave us a player pool of, let's see, that's 5, 8, 10, 13, 15, 25, about 28 players. So I typically try to stay around 30-ish players on a smaller slate that's 4, 5, 6 games. So I would have done this player pool and then found 3 or 4 values, which we would have done Ish, Cameron Johnson. I probably would have had Wagner in there. Just kind of mixed and matched a few of those guys. And I typically run about 20 lineups a night for GPP, and then I'll do 1 or 2 for cash and kind of spread them out. But anyways, I just wanted to show you this sheet. It's very simple, easy to read. This is one I'm going to track for the next couple of days. Might share some screenshots with it in our chat group. And then I will go ahead and add it to our NBA sheet. So let's see how it does. Good luck, guys.